Adolf Hitler. His name is synonymous with evil, genocide, and one of the darkest chapters in human history. Yet, to understand how he came to dominate an entire continent and plunge the world into chaos, we have to rewind time to the days before he ever held rallies, issued decrees, or gripped the world in fear. This is the life of Adolf Hitler, a life marked by tragedy, ambition, betrayal, and devastating consequences. Born on April 20th, 1889 in Braunau am Inn, a small town in Austria-Hungary, Adolf Hitler came into the world far removed from any vision of power or greatness. He was the fourth of six children in an unstable household dominated by his father, Alois, a strict and authoritarian customs official, and his mother, Clara, who doted on Adolf with affection but was often overshadowed by Alois's temperament. The young Adolf was an average student, but even in childhood he showed signs of sensitivity, a flair for drawing, and an interest in German nationalism, a sentiment that would later define his life. Hitler's upbringing was complicated by the early deaths of several siblings, his strained relationship with Alois, and a lack of discipline in school. After his father died in 1903, Adolf's academic performance collapsed entirely, and he dropped out, moving to Vienna with dreams of becoming a painter. In Vienna, however, Hitler faced rejection and hardship, shaping the beliefs that would later define his ideology. Vienna, however, was not kind to him. He applied twice to the Academy of Fine Arts, only to be rejected both times. The rejection devastated him and marked the start of years spent drifting aimlessly, living in poverty, and harboring resentments that would later form the backbone of his ideology. In Vienna, Hitler encountered a melting pot of culture, politics, and racial tensions, experiences that had an indelible impact on his worldview. Struggling to make sense of his failures and surroundings, he gravitated toward extremist ideas, including anti-Semitism, which was rampant in Austria at the time. These years of hardship solidified his belief that he would one day rise above his circumstances, blaming Jews and other perceived enemies for his misfortunes. Then came World War I, the turning point in Hitler's life. In 1914, after moving to Munich, Hitler enlisted in the German army, serving as a dispatch runner on the front lines. Though he was not decorated for immense bravery, his superiors commended his dedication. The war gave Hitler purpose and sprung him from the monotony of his earlier failures, but it also exposed him to the horrors of trench warfare, deepened his nationalism, and left him bitter at Germany's eventual defeat. The Treaty of Versailles in 1919 humiliated Germany, imposing harsh reparations and stripping the nation of territory and military strength. It was in these post-war years, amid economic collapse and political instability, that Hitler began his ascension. Joining the German Workers' Party, an obscure anti-Semitic and nationalist group in Munich, Hitler quickly rose to prominence because of his fiery speeches. His charisma, use of propaganda, and relentless determination turned the party into the National Socialist German Workers' Party, commonly known as the Nazi Party. In 1923, Hitler attempted a coup known as the Beer Hall Putsch, an ill-fated effort to seize control of Bavaria's government. The coup failed spectacularly and Hitler was imprisoned. But it was during his incarceration that he penned Mein Kampf, his infamous manifesto. In this book, Hitler laid out his ideological roadmap, his beliefs in Aryan superiority, anti-Semitism, and the need for Germany to expand its territory through Lebenskampf, or living space. Throughout the 1920s, Hitler rebuilt his political movement. The Nazi Party's popularity surged during the Great Depression as economic desperation fueled the public's appetite for radical solutions. Hitler promised prosperity, unity, and a return to greatness, a seductive message for a nation despondent and divided. In 1933, through a combination of shrewd political maneuvering, propaganda, and intimidation, Hitler was appointed Chancellor of Germany. Once in power, Hitler moved swiftly to dismantle democracy. Within months, he consolidated control through the Enabling Act, which granted him near-dictatorial powers. The machinery of totalitarianism began turning. Opposition parties were banned, propaganda flooded Germany, and Jewish citizens were systematically excluded from society. Hitler's ultimate goal was clear: the creation of a so-called pure Aryan state. By 1939, Hitler had transformed Germany into a fearsome military power. With promises of reclaiming lost glory, he went on a spree of territorial expansion, a move that stunned and dismayed European leaders. First Austria, then Czechoslovakia, and finally Poland fell to Hitler's aggression, prompting Britain and France to declare war. World War II had begun. At the height of his power, Hitler ruled over much of Europe. His war machine advanced rapidly, crushing nations with terrifying efficiency. Yet Hitler's ambitions extended far beyond conquest. During the war, he initiated his final solution, the systematic extermination of Jews, Romani people, and other groups he deemed undesirable. The Holocaust claimed the lives of 6 million Jews and millions of others, forever marking humanity with its unfathomable horrors. As the war dragged on, cracks began to appear in Hitler's empire. His invasion of the Soviet Union in 1941, known as Operation Barbarossa, proved disastrous, as the brutal Russian winter and fierce Soviet resistance crippled his forces. Meanwhile, the United States entered the war following Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor, tipping the balance decisively against Germany. Allied forces launched counterattacks throughout Europe, reclaiming territory and inflicting heavy losses on Hitler's armies. By 1945, Hitler's vision of a thousand-year Reich lay in ruins. Berlin was surrounded and Allied forces closed in. Refusing to surrender, Hitler retreated to a bunker beneath the city, where he spent his final days in isolation, issuing increasingly desperate orders to troops who no longer existed. On April 30th, 1945, Adolf Hitler took his own life alongside his wife, Eva Braun, whom he had married just a day earlier. His death marked the end of Nazi Germany, but the legacy of hatred, destruction, and unimaginable tragedy that he left behind would haunt the world forever. The story of Adolf Hitler is a cautionary tale, a stark reminder of how charismatic leaders can exploit fear, economic despair, and racism to gain absolute power. By examining his life, we confront both the capacity for great evil and the urgency to guard against its rise. As the world continues to reckon with the shadows of history, the lessons of Adolf Hitler's life remind us that vigilance, tolerance, and humanity must prevail. For if they do not, history has shown that darkness can once again consume the light.